So here we are. What a wonderful topic, care, the importance of care and cultivating it, and how do we cultivate it. So I'm so pleased to be here with all of you and Aviv, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Aviv.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And is my audio coming through clear?
Yes, very, very well.
Okay, so let us begin by bringing all our voices into the room, please.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone.
And welcome to the Portal's practice gym. Today's focus is on the practice of essence generation. Actually, we're going to officially launch a new word in the English language today. You know how people for years started using presence as a verb, to presence, presencing. Well, today we are beginning to talk about to essence and essencing as a way of bringing this into the idea of the process of essence generation. And the focus of today is doing so in the context of care, the essence of care, and bringing the essence of care to life. Before we get there, we will begin briefly with a simple, brief centering practice. Then we will place the practice of essence generation or essencing inside a broader framework to appreciate it and juxtapose it to other practices, for example, healing practices. And then we will dive right into the practice itself by bringing your voices into the process. So let us begin with a simple centering practice. And if you were to just take a deep breath and release and let go any tension, and as you do so, let yourself truly settle where you are, the chair, the sofa, the armchair, wherever you are. Let yourself really settle into the space where you now sit. And you may choose to do this with eyes closed or with open eyes. So one more time, deep inhale. You may choose to bring your hands up, and as you do so, you may say with me, in your own words, or with me, I gather myself unto myself. So one more time. I gather the whole of me, body, mind, and soul orchestration, and all the many inner lives, the full community within. Every part, every voice can settle down into this space we now create. And see, actually, let yourself feel the support of the floor under your feet, and the support of the chair or the armchair or the sofa, wherever you sit, and the support you feel in your back and your behind. And that is how we simply feel the gift of gravitation. Just let's recognize for a minute that from the first moment that we came into this life, we have always, every moment been supported by gravitation. And the way gravitation, where we experience gravitation, is support under our feet, support under our butt, support in our back. The gift of gravitation. And Let's recognize you can take your body wherever you want to go. You have that power to choose to go, to choose to sit wherever you want to. And always, wherever you are supported by the planet, by that gravity. Whether it's the planet pulling you or whether it's the rest of the universe pushing your body to the planet, or both, it's your own choice how to image that. But it is always there for you. And now, if you were to bring your awareness to another kind of gravity, this is the gravity in your core. That sense that the field that you are, the space that you are, the presence that you are, emanates out of the inner spark, the inner core. Call it the soul-spirit compound. It is a different kind of gravity. It's the center, the core of your being, of the space that you occupy. And this time, it's not so much a pool, but it's that core, that spark of life is what gives you lift, gives you presence, an anchor. And right there with this core that you are, that emanates the presence, the field that you occupy, right on top of it rides the power of awareness. You have your unique individuated awareness, and you can choose to bring to focus whatever it is you choose to focus on. And you have the power to choose what is important for you. And you have that self-authoring power to determine who you are becoming by choosing what to focus on. Let's just feel the dance, the play of that eternal support of the gravitational pull of the planet that's always there for us. And then you have this other inner core gravity that sustains you, that affords you a self-authoring power. Let's just stay with this for a moment. Those two centers of gravity, the planet and your own, and we're going to bring these awareness, this sense of you are your own self-authoring agent. You have agency, and the appreciation of that, the responsibility of that, the honor and the liberation of being given agency to your life. Let's just stay with this for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. So let us proceed with this awareness into the practice of today. I'm going to bring up a slide. Yes, welcome to the Portals Practice Gym. Today we are bringing into focus the practice of essence generation, or essencing. And we're going to answer what is this practice and why do we essence generate. And to get us located, I'm bringing these 3 lines. Many of you have seen these 3 lines as part of the contemplative framework we use inside the epoch culmination body of work as we tell the story of the unfolding epoch. We have also used this and built it one step at a time recently on the co-creating Humanity's Future 483. So that recording is on portals, you can trace it. And the story we told there, which I will briefly review, is the idea that when we each showed up here, right from the moment of birth, we were already tethered naturally to the as was meant to be line, the line of your personal growth and natural development. And therefore, by definition, by design, the evolutionary line that describes and holds the permission, the possibility for humanity to always be updating and opening new permissions, new possibilities, bring new faculties online, get joined to new creative powers, that line is always nearby. And at the same time, that there is the third line that is often not just nearby, but occupies the majority of the space, the conditioned line. The line where the accumulative history of pain and struggle and trauma and scar tissue, all that has accumulated in the personal and the collective experience, that becomes an inhibiting, holding back influence from unlocking natural and evolutionary possibilities. And the unique insight that we actually explored in the Co-Creating Humanity's Future 483 was this idea that when a new permission, new possibility, new potential opens on the evolutionary line, in the absence of an as was meant to be natural response, we, on the condition line, get used to applying these new potentials inside the framing and the context of the accumulated conditioning. And we offered some reflections on all the way back to the agrarian revolution, the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, and how these are often potencies. Like, for example, in the case of the industrial revolution, this was a time when a new creative potential was coming online for humanity. We even decided to call this time the permission for Homo solaris, in the idea that the individual person could become more creative. And that was largely, not solely, but largely taken into commerce and into entrepreneurial pursuits, which then enabled wonderful things. But a lot of it is also the source point to the extraordinary imbalance and exploitative and extractive economy that we now find ourselves at this point, where the planet and humanity at large is truly out of balance. So all that and more we trace there. The reason we bring it today in the context of the practice today, the reason we are reasserting the natural as was meant to be line, is the line where we access the presence of trust, the presence of freedom and love. On the condition line, we find the pool, the inhibiting trauma and pain and reactivity and polarization. And the evolutionary line is where new perceptions and new possibilities open up. So when we looked at that, we indeed describe that shift of a higher potential into its translation on the condition line, and we therefore asserted there that co-creating humanity's future, anybody, anywhere, engaging in those sentiments, they forever are invited to two, in a simplistic way, two layers, two levels, two elevations of work. That's how we framed it there. We were going to assert now the third dimension in the middle. But the proposal was that forever there is a need to do the healing and liberation work to release at a personal level and at a group and collective level, to release the inhibiting persuasions on the condition line, and to also engage in parallel, not better, not worse. These are simply two elevations of work that are part of the endeavor taken up by many all around the planet in different groups and pods and communities to engage with healing and liberation work, and to also engage with those processes, those practices that open up and offer access to new emergent potential from the evolutionary line. So I'm framing that background to bring us to this and to proposing the idea that essence generation, and when we talk about essencing, which is the practice we're about to embark on, we are going to bring the focus to a practice that is designed to truly bring to life and tether us to the as was meant to be natural line of growth and development. And to do so, I'm going to very briefly frame three core premises in the healing and liberation work, and actually in the many other modalities that at different times we can come back and populate. But you can talk about the self-improvement and self-optimization work. All that is to do with releasing at an individual level and at a group level the inhibiting influences of the condition line, such that we can be more liberated on the as was meant to be line. We're going to look at the guiding premises when we do this work, and then we're going to draw a distinction, both in terms of premise and in terms of the orientation and the attunement when we engage in essence generation work. So when we work in the capacity as a healer, and there are in this group many healers, many people that practice a variety of healing modalities, and many coaches and many facilitators who work in a variety of different capacities. One of the core premises when we do the work as a healer and also as a coach is the idea of letting life do the healing. We don't need to do all the heavy lifting of the healing. We want to allow the vitality and the process and the flow of life to facilitate and bring the healing process. And because of that, a core element of the work as a coach and as a healer is you help release, you help transmogrify, you help liberate from whatever was hindering by way of experience, by way of trauma, by way of scar tissue, by way of any of those dimensions, whether you're facilitating and coaching an individual or a group through some element of shadow work. You're always facilitating the release of the conditioning to facilitate liberation and healing, to engage with the as was meant to be natural line of growth and development. And therefore, part of your work is to help the person you're working with recenter, reintegrate the parts that they disowned, rediscover their core essence, and be renaturalized to their vitality, to their well-being, to their wholeness. So that's the work you do both as a healer and also as a coach when you are more engaging in the project of self-improvement or even self-development, or what you would sometimes call the self-optimization project. So therefore, the orientation the attunement when you work as a coach or a healer is you focus on the patient or the client you're working with. It's all about the orientation and the attunement to the client, the patient, their needs. What can you do to help facilitate their liberation, their healing? And so you bring into the endeavor, into the service work, into the process, into the engagement, certain benefit agenda. You're actually driving to facilitate a certain outcome. The outcome is improvement in the condition, a release, a liberation, some form of healing and empowerment of the person you're working with. These are very important orientations we all use in the capacity of working as a coach, as a healer, as a counselor. And these are important. We do not want to leave them behind. We simply want to now use that to draw a distinction. That the space we are about to move into, the space we call essence generation and essencing, the premise is different and the orientation and the attunement is different. So let's bring this idea of essence generation work, which we also call essencing. Well, the premise here is firstly that the human is actually never meant to be separated from the blessing realms, from the realms of natural presence and natural essence. We are meant to naturally be with those realms that bless us, that offer vitality and well-being and buoyancy and so much. So that's the first premise. And the second premise with that is that because of that, we are naturally afforded the capacity, the power, the design, the faculty, all of it is afforded to us to generate, to summon, to connect, to fully bring to life the full range of universal essence and presence and enhanced states that actually the most advanced pharmaceutical or chemical production unit in the whole universe is right here inside each of our heads. You can access any essence and any presence. Sometimes you need to practice for 20 or 30 years to actually get into these advanced or altered states. But you can get there even without the help of external chemistry, such as drugs. That capacity is actually wired to the human. That is a core premise we bring to the essence generation work. And lastly, we therefore bring to this idea that the centering element of the work, if the centering element of the healing work or the coaching work was the client, the patient you're working with, here in the practice we are embarking on today, the central element, the centering element is the quality, the virtue, the essence we choose to generate and that we endeavor to bring to life and really become that essence, become the voice of that essence such that it speaks with power through us. That's the practice we are embarking on today. And so to finally juxtapose these one next to the other, so again, in healing, in coaching, very important spaces of work. At different time we will come and populate the many modalities that are part of those spaces. There, the orientation, the attunement is to the client or to the patient. In essence generation work, there is a shift in attunement. We shift from focusing on the client to focusing on the essence. And we shift from driving to create an outcome to appreciating and to lovingly looking to appreciate the magnificence and the beauty of whatever the essence is that we choose to focus on. This is the different in orientation. It's almost as though we completely let go of any outcome, any agenda, knowing full well that when we actually get attuned to that essence, the blessing and the enhancement is tenfold. But we come into it not in the transaction of what will I get from it, but in the devotional way of attunement, appreciating the significance and the magnificence of that quality of essence. Today we're going to focus on the essence of care. Another time we can come and focus on the essence of trust, the essence of honor, the essences of reverence and service, the essence of love and understanding, and even the essence of development and healing. And I specifically am making the distinction. So when you work as a healer in the first bracket, you are working with healing essences and presences and modalities to create an outcome. When you are essence generating in this space, we are simply appreciating how profound it is that healing or the development is part of this universe. And we even allow ourselves to, for a moment, imagine what would this universe feel like and be like if healing was not part of it, if care was not part of it. It's enough for 1 second to imagine the scary, frightening, horrifying thought of living in a universe that's devoid of care or devoid of healing. So with that, we now come to the practice of care. And I forgot to ask Paul to play me music before, but I'm going to ask you, Paul, to bring us now a few moments of music with this, as we take a few moments to contemplate and to begin to essence generate. What is the nature of care? Where do you witness and experience care? And what practices, rituals, and ways cultivate the essence and the presence of care? And Paul, you can by all means stream music already with me here. And as we will stay for just a few minutes with Paul leading us into this space, a brief word on the practice itself. When you come to speak, you're invited to speak as care and or to describe the presence and the essence of care appreciatingly and lovingly. So one of the elements of this practice is we can lose all the diluting language. You know how often when we begin to speak, we say, I think, all the other prefixes, the sentence or two on the front end that we use to disempower ourselves. We can lose all that, release that, and seek to access the language of care right there and then, poetically, potently, propositionally, in the fullest, most embodied way you feel ready to. And I will offer perhaps sometime mirroring to augment what you said. I will at times offer augmentation by inquiry, or I will perhaps offer trimming of the language. So I'm going to go quiet. Let us be with Paul's music that can be just a little louder, please. And we'll begin to bring your voices into the practice of essencing care collectively. Still very faint, Paul. Thank you, Paul. So we are ready to begin to have your hands, if you're ready to offer an essencing of care. Please, let's see, showing of hands. And we will begin with Aud, please.
It's almost like a being a bit stepped back, a bit withdrawn emotionally, perhaps, but being able to feel and know what something or someone needs. Not what I think they need, but what actually they need. No self-interest, no expectation, and no agenda. And care, I notice, really takes me away from judgment, because it causes me to care to find out more of what the case actually is.
Care is not singular. It's collective. It's a we. It's about maintenance. It's about counting oneself in. It's about an awareness that one is part of something else. I think as a small boy, you don't know so much about the world, but you do instinctively know when something is hurt or something is not at its best. And you feel you want it to be better.
When it comes to the individual human being a portal in which that essence of care can be offered or facilitated to another human life, it's very multiple. Even though the care that you might sense providing to say comfort to a child who is frightened feels different in its need and its application to the care that it might require to allow somebody a struggle that they need to go through. You know, it's still the same care. The challenge between human lives is really being able to find or to locate yourself in the way of it, so that lock and key relationship can happen, so that care can flow through to where it's needed in the way that it's needed.
Being in care feels like putting a pen putting a point on a whole cascade of frequency that spans creation to where we are now, that spans the past and the possibility, but it's ever fresh. And in it, it has awareness. It's got value. It's got appreciation. So the presence and the feeling of being at the point, to have you always be aware and trying to reach the purpose and value of being sustained for an interim period of time. I have to ask why. And yet, as Mona said, I can dispense it to my cat. If I'm holding my cat and the cat's tail is twitching and its whiskers are twitching and I know it's having a dream, so I'm not going to move my hand because I don't want to disturb that cat's dream.
Staying with you, Helena, just for an extra moment. You're describing a unique quality of awareness that accompanies care. Where and how do you sense that awareness? Where and how does it turn up for you in your own system?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, the automatic one is to feel my pulse, because I know that there is an electrical signal that keeps the blood coursing through my body. But also, it's in the knowing.
Mm.
And I don't know where that comes from. You know, does a shepherd have that knowing when it's in the mountain with the sheep? Does it see how big is the picture? How big is the domain of appraisal and awareness to do with being sustained? It's obviously something that grows with value, because you've got careful in the care. And the careful implies that you understand that things are meant to be a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And to deviate from that is not within a life that's trying to improve or develop or move on or be responsive to what caused it. So to me, care would be in the promptings of that awareness and that value, which obviously is not a fixed property because it grows all the time.
Care, a constant attention to the needs of something, flora, fauna, human, because you hold a value for it. And I may join it simply by asking, how can I help?
Let care speak. Let's pause together a while with ease. For you need not worry and stretch and strife. For I, care, am seeded into each and every human. as a starter pack for life. And like every seed, as you nurture me, so shall I grow. You need not climb mountains. You need not search far and wide. For here I am, inside, ready to abide. I have all kinds of gifts and all kinds of bright things to bring to our companionship life together. I can bring sensitivities you might not suspect. Great balancing, arts and measurement. I know what to do and when to do it. If you wish to set me free.
Care unites one human life to another. I was once in a group of people and we were working into different essences. And someone raised their hand and said, I wish I could have more patience. And another person said, I have a lack of compassion. And I'll never forget, the teacher said something that has stayed with me. And he said, it's not about trying to find more patience or compassion or supporting another person per se. It traces all the way back to, if you care about the human, if you care about the human race, then all of the other essences will load into that care.
So the question comes, is care a human-only expression? Because care in itself is a call and a response. It draws one back to the core of their life. And if care is a call and a response, what is the nature of that response? Because does it have a requirement to act or not? Because surely at times care means to not act, but to allow and to project forward and to allow for the conditions for that which may be. And that allowance, that then provides a connection and alignment to whatever that call came from, its connection to its life. And so then the question then becomes, well, what is it that prevents? What is the impediment to care? Because that's what we need to release in the expression of it.
Care is an active recognition and awareness of value of something unto itself, and then surrounding the thing valued with balances, safeties, easements, as it struggles to fulfill itself, which is a deep devotional practice of listening and companioning of a very special kind, really a partnership of evolution.
So can you stay here with us, and can we build on 3 of the words you used? You describe care as something that surrounds you and something that provides you easement, and that part of the way of the practice of care and the exercising of care is in listening. And part of what we want to bring now into this, that when we look to essence, to generate an essence, and now we are generating the essence of care. It goes so much beyond words. It goes into feelings and all that evokes feelings. And perhaps one of the most conductive pathways into feelings and into attunement is music. So I will ask that you give us another contemplative feeling access into care, the significance of care. Perhaps we even take a moment to again feel, what would this universe feel like if it was devoid of care, that horrifying realization. And then recognize that, oh no, it is filled with care all around. And access this through the filament of feelings and music. So please, Ed, lead us into some contemplative way of being with care through music. This is an experiment. We are practicing the multiple pathways available for the human faculty and the generative capacity for the human system to sense, to attune, to bring to life, to generate. And here is before we bring a few more voices, here is one more dimension to consider in that. By way of adding another scaffold to another infrastructure to the inquiry, the contemplative, generative inquiry, the essencing of care. Some of you have seen this before as the 4 zones of development practice, where zone 1 is where I work to develop me, each one of us. Zone 2 is where we collectively work on development. Zone 3 is where we search for truth to see what the case is. And zone 4 is where we endeavor to impact the world, to influence, to shape the ecology around us and at large. And this is something that we've generated when we worked on the 4 zones of practices in a recording that will soon be released on portals and can be traced with this name of the 4 zones of practice. Here is how we now bring this into the 4 zones of the essence generation of care. Because self-care, if we cannot care for ourselves, it becomes very difficult to care for anything else. That's the oxygen mask on the plane principle. You first got to take care of you so you can take care of other people and other needs around you. And then there is the care to others, the mutual, the relational, the communal care. And then there is care as a property in the universe, which is partly what we're trying to sense and express in this practice here today. The care that expresses itself through goodness, the care that expresses itself through truth and through beauty. And then there is the care that is generated and brought to the world in invisible acts and in very visible acts of individuals and groups, and by people who simply respond at the point of need. The lifeguard at the beach, the first responders running into the line of fire, into a burning building, because they cannot not respond to the need, because they are wired with this essence of care. And part of what we are trying to do here, to honor and support those different domains or expressions or facets of care, is to appreciate the blessing and the essence and the presence of care that emanates and get expressed through self-care, care to others, care as a property in the world, and care brought to the world. As some of you spoke to earlier, that's what you describe as the care that is sought in the creational force, the creational impulse.
When generated, I am grace. And am I not seen in the solar system when I'm present there? And on the other side of the gender, I am careful. I'm full of care and may be able to cool so that all can find its balance.
I see care to be a vehicle of response to what is needed. And it's exact. you don't give too much food to a baby. You don't give too much water to a plant.
This is a daily life story, and I became aware of it because of the invitation to focus on the essence of care. I live in a rural place and surrounded by farmlands. And there is this small meadow that grows the grass every spring. And it just grows there. And there is this truck driver that lives a mile away down the road. And each year he comes with his old tractor to that piece of meadow to cut the grass. And he comes there for a few days every time in June. Already for 15 years I see him passing by, cutting the grass. A few days later, going again to re-hustle the grass so that it can dry. And a few days later he packs it into plastic bales. And then a few days later he comes to collect them with his old tractor. Because this man has a few animals. He has a horse, he has a donkey, and a few ponies for his children. And somehow, because of the invitation to look at the essence of care, the morning after the invitation, I was sitting on the terrace watching this man, and suddenly it dawned upon me that he had this big blue parasol on top of his old tractor, because it was a very hot day.
Mm.
And then suddenly this whole story came together, that he took extra care for himself, whilst already for years taking care of his animals by harvesting the grass that is provided by magic through the planet. So the essence of care might be everywhere, and this man might never have thought about the essence of care, but it's living in that process.
In the story you offer, you describe care as the connective tissue in the chain of life, from one domain, the growing grass, to the next, Care is that connective tissue, that bridge one domain of life to the next. Thank you.
I remember that I used to have a cat, and she have a kitten and a dog, and after that they have this small baby dog, and all the care that how they give everything to the kitten. It's so beautiful to see it, and it's so loving, you know. Care have to be contain love too.
At the beginning of this process, I asked Care to speak, and the words that came were simply, "I am here for you." As the other people have spoken, it turned up to me that care is like a blood supply, because as the blood moves around the body, it gets to every part, and it carries nourishment. It's like a medium that carries everything that you need to nourish the body to all parts. And I've just been flooded with examples.
If I look at nature, you basically see care everywhere. But these are basically automatic, robotic kind of taking care. And we humans have the possibility to recognize it and translate it into care. But apart from that, we also have the freedom of choice. So we have the possibility to extend care, and thus becoming co-creator of new kind of care that hasn't been there before and is not robotic and automatic. So that places us in a very unique situation.
And care let you
deal with everything by its first principle, the love of its design, the love of the purpose of it. Care will give you the space of uniqueness of each thing, of each one, of each human being. Care will lead you to be humble, to be quiet.
We live on a planet which is spiraling around at 1,000 miles an hour, and yet we feel it not. For me, that's a fantastic care.
So in the human domain, I feel sometimes unemployed, an angel who's looking for a job. Maybe you will have the care to help me.
In thinking about today's session, I began to think, where can I find care in my own life? And I found that care is very much tied up with time. What do I take time with? What do I spend time over? So that comes into the domain of how to practice care. How to practice more care is take more time with things. And in looking around, looking through the day that I spend, where do I take the most care with things? I take a lot of care with my garden. I go out and spend time with it, and I weed and I water and do all the things that my plants need. And it's easy to see then where care may be lacking if I'm not spending time.
If I deal with care, a human being to another human being, a human being with an essence, or contemplating about the care all around, omnipotent in nature, I can connect every time refreshed to the new permissions, to the new generations that come from the core, the very deep core that the same angel of essence of care comes core.
As we experience through each of our many voices, we attempted to speak for care, to be care, to give agency to the essence and the presence of care, to notice how the beauty and the power and the attentiveness of care shows up in all the many small and invisible as well as large moments of life. The teacher in the classroom wanting to give the best chance to the student, the nurse looking after her patients in those various rooms, floating and flowing from one room to the next, exactly in the moment of need. The stranger who is confused somewhere in the street and is helped by a total stranger. All those invisible moments and acts of care. And what we attempted was to give agency and recognize that at any moment in time, when we nourish, when we bring the essence of care to life, we make more of it present in the world, and we possibly help others connect and arc to that natural presence we're never meant to be without. Thank you very much for all those that spoke and all those that spoke by listening and brought your presence into this in this way.